Saru mo ki kara ochiru. Even monkeys fall from trees. This Japanese proverb tells us that anyone can fall on hard times. This week on Lost in Translation, we look into cool Japan, Japan's push to capture the imagination of the world, and how character design in video games has helped accomplish this goal. It was an ordinary March Friday in Japan. People were bustling about their various cities, winding down the work week, or at least as close as Japan ever comes to winding down. But at precisely 2:46 in the afternoon, everything changed. About 80 miles off the coast of Japan, a 310-mile-long fault zone violently ruptured. Enough energy to power the city of Los Angeles for an entire year was unleashed in 6 minutes. The ensuing tsunami brought flooding, landslides, and triggered a nuclear meltdown to top it all off. Over 200,000 people had to be evacuated due to the nuclear incident, and today, 5 years later, approximately 100,000 people remain displaced from their homes. To this day, 2,562 people are unaccounted for. Japan was in crisis. Suffering from the physical destruction, they were on the verge of an economic panic. Fears of radiation were actively driving tourists away. A plan had to be formed to preserve Japan's status as a first-tier tourist destination. Back in 2004, Japan had announced an initiative that came to be known as Cool Japan. It was hoped that the increased presence of Japanese cultural products would attract more international travelers and boost domestic tourism. Building on this initiative, the government formed the Creative Industries Promotion Office, which served to bring together private and public funding to promote the Cool Japan brand. The office stated that it wished to spark a Japan boom, which would create a mechanism to invite Japan followers to meccas in Japan and promote consumption within Japan. Japanese cultural centers, such as the Shibuya and Akihabara districts of Tokyo, were to become the focus and setting of numerous productions in order to draw tourists to those areas specifically. Games like The World Ends With You, Yakuza, Tokyo Jungle, and even Splatoon take place in such locations. With this in mind, the promotion office's goal was to take Japan from a $17 billion share of the global creative market in 2012 to a $98 billion share by 2020. To be sure, what Japan is after here is more than just money. Japan is attracting something called soft power, the ability to shape the preferences of others through appeal and attraction as opposed to more coercive measures. So, how does one go about building soft power? Well, focus on the aspects of culture that your nation excels at. For Japan, this would be manga, anime, and video games. Even better, focus on companies that do all three. Japan has long benefited from what is known as media mix, the combination of several different formats into one single business strategy. Think Disney, cruise lines, television channels, movies, toys, video games, all under one roof. Japanese companies have excelled at this media mix since long before the advent of video games. Companies would form Seisaku Inkai, or production committees, as joint ventures between several corporations for risk sharing and promotion. For example, a Seisaku Inkai could be comprised of a company that prints manga, another company that produces anime based on that manga, and a third company that produces interactive content based on the manga and anime. The entire Japanese video game industry has its roots in Seisaku Inkai. Bandai Namco is an excellent example of such an organization. They are comprised of multiple business units that cover everything from game development and toys to spa facilities, hotels, and restaurants. This diversification is also apparent in the business structures of Square Enix as well as Konami. And it is precisely this style of diversification that Nintendo is beginning to open up to. All of these companies understand the value of cooperation, but they also understand the value of mass appeal. Some of the most iconic characters from Japanese pop culture tend to exhibit a look often identified as Mukokuseki, no nation, no state. Now, this is a hugely controversial topic, and I will certainly be revisiting it later on. For now, we'll note that identifying race in anime has been an issue for decades. In a study conducted by Amy Liu at the University of North Carolina, 1,046 participants were shown random cropped headshots of characters from Japanese anime produced between 1958 and 2005. More than half of the characters were intended to be Asian, while only a small portion were intended to be Caucasian. Oddly enough, the Caucasian participants were more likely to assume a character was Caucasian, and the Asian participants were more likely to assume a character was Asian. Dr. Liu referred to this as own race projection, meaning observers regularly perceive anime characters to belong to their own racial group. Iconic character design is highly susceptible to a Mukokuseki look. The more unique the character looks, the less they look like a real human character, and the easier it can be to project one's own race onto them. This is certainly true of games from the 8-bit and 16-bit eras, where pixel art left the door wide open as to the specifics of a character's look. Often, you would have to read the game manual or reference the box art to get a true feel for the specifics of a character's design. Japanese anime character design has had a huge impact on character design in video games. Final Fantasy designer Amano Yoshitaka started his career working on Speed Racer, an anime that exhibits a decidedly Mukokuseki look. Combine that with his strong Western influences, and Yoshitaka's art straddles some no man's land between ukiyo-e and Alan Lee. Nomura Tetsuya's designs, on the other hand, sit much more squarely in the Japanese mainstream. Even so, I've run across numerous discussions on the internet about whether Cloud from Final Fantasy VII looks Asian or not. The fact that people are even debating this point at all speaks volumes about how Japan is perceived in the West. In the top corner of this video, you'll see a card you can click with a quick poll question. Do you think Cloud looks Asian or Caucasian? I'm curious to see what you guys think. Anyways, back to character design. The simpler character design of Nintendo's Super Mario technically falls outside the bounds of Mukokuseki, as he is explicitly given a nationality. However, this approach had the Mukokuseki-like effect of making him feel less Japanese to Westerners, helping game sales. Likewise, Sonic the Hedgehog was a character who was purposefully designed by Sega to appeal to Americans, sporting Michael Jackson's shoes and a more edgy look. Sonic was created to rival Nintendo's Mario mascot, as mascot culture is a big deal in Japan. Next time, we'll dive into mascot culture and how it has been a major marketing tool for the Japanese video game industry. If you want to read more about Cool Japan, and believe me, there is lots to read, I've included a link to my notes below. Whether or not Cool Japan has succeeded in increasing Japan's influence abroad remains uncertain. What is certain is that policy decisions from the top down have driven and shaped the Japanese video game industry from the very beginning. What started as a campaign to boost their image has transformed into an effort to repair Japan both physically and economically. Sometimes, the hopes of a nation can truly rest on the shoulders of something so humble as a video game. I'll see you again next time.